In Search of Knowledge, Past, Present, and Future is a series of unique programs that are designed to show our history as a living history rather than just a list of names and facts about people in the past. It is a Black history lesson, a vocational tool to interest people in various occupations, and a mini museum containing books, artifacts, and photos of notable Blacks, bringing an original art exhibit directly to the classroom. Welcome to In Search of Knowledge. You're actually tuned into part 2. Last month was part 1, where I interviewed Karen Jordan and Richard Watson, two individuals who were part of the protests of Girard College. Tonight you're going to see the panel discussion where we talk about issues that they faced then and issues that we face now. So sit back, relax, and enjoy In Search of Knowledge.
Was there a specific event that made you join the protest?
There were flyers going around in the neighborhood for people to come demonstrate at Girard College. And when we got to College Avenue, we saw shoulder-to-shoulder police officers with barricades for blocks, shoulder-to-shoulder for blocks. And that made us go around to see what was going on. And that made us join the protest because we knew Black children could not go to Girard College. It was a school for poor white male orphans only. Our tax dollars were going to Girard College, but our children could not go there.
Oh, I got involved because I woke up one morning, I guess it was Saturday, it was May 1st, 1965, and I heard car horns blowing. I could tell something was going on, and I went to the corner and looked. I could see people walking, and I heard people chanting, and I saw like the police cars. They had ugly police cars then. They were like red Jeeps. It looked like they were just coming back from World War II, but the policemen rode around in Jeeps in the ugly red cars. And I knew something was up, so I sort of went around the gate of Girard College because that's where it seemed to start, around the gate. And I looked and I said, wow, what's going on? I could come out here and draw this tomorrow. So I came and became involved because I saw it as an opportunity to draw people. Because as an artist, I was in my second year at school, and that was perfect for me, just to draw people in motion and the crowd. So after a couple of days of doing that, police picked me up and took me to a police station for drawing people. And it knocked me off my feet, you know, not physically, but I was ready. And that got me involved with a sense of cause to start being involved with making something change instead of having something change to me. So that's how I became involved more seriously about people's rights, and I met Karen and a whole group of other people, and I came back every day, and I put the pen down, and I picked up a picket sign and became a part of a group called the Young Militants.
What were some of the advantages of taking your protest to the streets?
It kept light on everything that was going on. And Cecil's strategy was, while this court case was being fought in court, you had to keep the eyes of the nation, the eyes of the city on Girard College, because it could not have been done in silence. It couldn't just have been fought in the court. And he wanted the world to see the bigotry and the racism here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and it takes courage. You know, when you become a part of a movement, you can't just show up and say I did it and go home and just walk around saying I was a part of something. You have to put bricks together one at a time to build a building, and when you're in a movement, everybody's role is important to keep that movement going on. And like Karen said, you have to keep it in front of the cameras, have to keep it in front of the press, and also Cecil B. Moore wanted to expose the brutality of the system in terms of what they would do to people who had a right to defend themselves and also who had a right to participate. And we all had a right to participate, and that's what we were doing. We were putting ourselves on the front line to be the ones who were fighting against injustice.
We walked for 7 months and 17 days. That's how long we picketed at Girard College.
What were some of the disadvantages of taking your protest to the streets?
Police brutality. That was a disadvantage. And they were very brutal. The men got it worse, but they didn't care if they ran over women and children when they started to stand. I call it a stampede. When the call went out to get them, they got us. I was fortunate enough I didn't get hurt like other people did. But Bernice, one of our friends, her sister was bitten by dogs. And this was in a small section of Girard College, in front of Girard College. Brutality was real. We did not rob banks. We only protested in a small area, and people were beat savagely. Sometimes the guys would go home and walk around the wall, and the police would take them out in the park and beat them up and let them go. So it was a lot of brutality going on out there.
Back cars up in your face and let the gas pipes just blow in your face all night. So, you know, horses and dogs were not uncommon if they wanted to break up the demonstration. The tactic was to put fear into people so that they don't participate. And if you can frighten people away from their cause, then you can weaken their cause. And the general public will say, oh, I know they weren't going to do that. And I told y'all not to do that. But we had a lot of people who stood on the sidelines who benefited from a lot of the things that people suffered to make happen for them. So that's part of the life that we live now. You have to participate in order to appreciate what people go through to reap the benefits of struggling.
You know, people talk about gangs. You know, it's a difference from what went on with gang wars back in the day and what you see now. But Cecil B. Moore went to the street corners and he asked the gangs to come and demonstrate at Girard College, and they did. We were in Morocco's territory. And all of the gangs from all over Philadelphia stopped gang warring. And they came to march at Girard College.
Do you feel that today's protests are necessary?
Yes. And the struggle continues. You think you got over one hurdle, and there's always another one that's put in your path. And it's constant. You know, you think racism is over? No. It's fine and well in America and all over the world. You know, Girard College, it was always something else, some landlords, you know, poor hiring practices, discrimination on jobs. You're going to always have that, and you're going to always have to fight and struggle. You're always going to have to fight.
Yeah. And unity is more important, or just as important, or more important than struggling all the time, because until people unify, they can struggle forever. I think the common cause and the common ground is to know the truth about why we have to struggle so much. The inequalities, the imbalance in the systems that we live under. Coming up next year, we're going to be voting for a president. Oh, it's this year, isn't it? Yeah, it's this year people are going to be voting for a president, but that's not the important part of it. The important thing is to create a system that functions for us and not necessarily go out and fight against everything that comes down the pike. Until we unify and say that this is what we want to do collectively, we'll always be protesting and fighting and being spread apart, like stepped on like ants and roaches.
Does your experience as part of the freedom fighters affect the way you view protests today?
Well, you know, the protest piece is fashionable sometimes. You know, it has a lot to do with how much the protest is centered on real change. You know, we had a focal point. We were dedicated to getting black boys into Girard College. Protest movements today may pop up in different cities at different times for different reasons, but that's still not a centrally focused, lasered protest movement to say we're going to change the system so that we're no longer treated like subhuman beings, and we're no longer, our demands come one at a time. You know, to have an agenda that says we're going to build this structure here is different than saying we're going to put a shack here and a shack there and a shack there and a shack there. Instead of building an institution, you know, an institution meaning as a people, we are moving towards improving our schools, improving our neighborhoods, taking care of our neighborhoods by having our own businesses in our own neighborhoods. That's an agenda that we don't have. The movements that pop up because somebody gets shot, pop up because somebody got arrested, they're like little fires. They're like little brush fires, when what we need to do is have a spearhead that says we are going to create a community in our heads, and then everything we do will be contributing to creating a physical community that people of color, can no longer say that we've been oppressed by people who are not people of color, by the society at large. When you're building, you don't have time to look at what's not there. You create something that was never there, and you have something to deal with.
When we were demonstrating, I guess what brought it home for me was the demonstrations down south. And our struggle and the fight down south was the same as it was in the north. We're all faced with the same thing, racism, inequality. Well, it still exists today. So what we fought for back then, young people today are fighting for what they see as the issue for them. Now, all of us don't think alike, because everybody didn't agree with us when we were at Girard College. Black and white, a lot of people didn't agree with us, but we knew we had to do something. The young people today, their fight is Black Lives Matter, all right? That's their fight. That's your fight. It's our fight too, but the onus is on you folks now. You know, we're older. We can give you advice. We can kind of show you the pitfalls that we had to go through, but your fight is your fight for today. Were people always getting killed? Yes, they were, but that's your fight today because it's a lot more vicious and brutal. It's right out there in the front. And all the laws we have, people just come shoot you 6, 7, 8 times and you running away from it. That's your issue today. So that's the issue that you guys concentrate on. There's always going to be an issue, so your fight is your fight for today. That's what the young people are doing. Whatever you say is the fight, that's the fight. But we're all in the same barrel.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to tell you and add to that is we have to be careful not to be marginalized by the fact that black people are killing black people. You know, the media can use that as a stance to say that if Black Lives Matter so much, why are black people killing black people? White people are killing white people. You know, people are killing people. So until it comes, that's a different agenda than saying that this institutionalized racism is stacked against people of color. That's a different equation altogether. We still have to look at the larger picture and also look at the historical reasons and the kinds of post-traumatic stress, slavery stress symptoms that we have gone through and we are still passing down to our people within our own community. So Black Lives Matter to all of us. Life matters to everybody, and as black people that exist and they're still being oppressed because they're black, that's a generalized question that has to be addressed without saying that we are killing each other. Everybody's killing everybody. The Russians and the Israelis and the Arabs and the radicalized Muslims, everybody's killing somebody. You know, it's like it ain't nothing happening if you ain't got somebody to kill, and that's abnormal. And they call themselves normal. Normal people scare me.
What advice do you have for today's protesters?
I would say, from what I see, don't lose focus. And don't let anybody get you away from the focus. The focus is Black Lives Matter. The newspaper will say, they broke a window, they looted. And that's all they want people to concentrate on, not on the goal. The goal is to stop the police brutality, the police killings. So those young people that are out there, that should be the focus. Don't let anybody try to take you away from it. The other thing is, when you have a demonstration, you have people you've never seen before. Everybody has a different agenda when they come out to demonstrate. And you cannot always keep people in line. You're going to have people that want to be destructive. You're going to have people that want to undermine. You have people that look like you that cause problems within the demonstrations themselves because they're working against you. Just like we had people to infiltrate our groups that look just like us. And they could cause problems amongst themselves. So keep the focus. If the focus is on Black Lives Matter, then you keep that focus, in spite of what people say on the outside and in the news. And you keep that focus. And you keep telling people that's why you're out here. Because you cannot determine what another person's going to do if you're in a group situation.
In an ideal world, there would be a strategy that everyone can understand, just like in warfare. Guerrilla warfare is one of the tactics that people use in different societies and in different cultures. to upset the power structures. And those are kinds of little things that when you say of spreading little pockets of insurrections that keep people on their toes. The Irish had something going on, the Irish Republican Army. People were so dedicated to change, they would starve themselves. They would go on hunger fast. But what could happen in America, in this society, is that if you go and sacrifice and keep your money in your pockets and stop buying certain brands of sneakers and certain brands of beverages and don't buy any of that, if you could go without that, like Dr. King did in the Montgomery bus boycott, if you don't ride buses and you go on a real strike with your money, people will start listening to what you want. Nobody's asked Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders for what they want. They're just saying, oh, they're the better choices than the other guy. But that's not what this should be based upon. It shouldn't be based upon having somebody demand that you give me something. But we should start building our own kind of consciousness about who we are. And the struggle will change. The struggle will change to weed out the people who are not a part of building. But keep the protests going on. It's a good thing.
Hi, my name is Robin, and I have a question. That question is, what advice would you give to a person who's trying to pursue their career in both nursing or art while trying to be active in movements and stuff?
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll say you can do the art and the movement. I don't know about the nursing part. I was nursed when I was little, but that's it. But check this out. I think if you're going to be an artist, that's a part of your life. The movement is a part of your life. So I found a way to be a part of a movement and gain from my powers of observation, because you're going to be among lots of people, and everything that people do is going to inform your creativity. People do some strange things, and people do some beautiful things. People do some wild, crazy things, and all of that is a part of your world. If you're a creative person, that's like fuel for your own fire. Take in things, be able to look at people in groups and also focus in on people as individuals. Learn how to anticipate movements of people, and you become very sharp, and that's your recollection power. You want to be able to remember things. Let your mind become a recorder, and let your ears become a recorder, and put all that together. When you have your private life and your private moments, that'll help you greatly. Karen?
And on top of what Richard says, read, and practice. Mm-hmm. If you want to get into nursing, you're going to need math. You're going to have a vocabulary. You're going to have to memorize things. And don't forget who you are. And keep your goal. Keep that goal right in the forefront. This is what I want to be, and that's what you do. Don't forget who you are. And treat people the way you want to be treated. And you have to have that compassion, especially if you're going into nursing. And you have to feel. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know the answer. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And this is for anybody, for any job, anywhere you go. Don't always be the one to sit back and have somebody tell you what to do. Ask, can you show me this? Can you help me with that? Because that gets you farther. A lot of people want to say young people are lazy. They don't want to do anything. Well, some people don't know how to ask the question. So wherever any of you go, ask. Oh, can I help you do this? That's how you learn. Mm-hmm. You learn by doing. You know, a lot when you have all your classes in nursing school, but you learn on the job, just like anywhere else you go. You have the basics, but you learn on the job. Keep your manners. You're going to find people when you have manners when you get some places, and after a while you say, where did all the manners go? Because as educated people are, you think they're so educated, and they know. Manners, some of the first things to go, fall to the wayside. So keep a good sense of self. Keep your manners in check. That has to stay out of the equation, because that's how they peg you. Don't be the first one to curse or get bad. You know, a lot of times we use that as a defense mechanism. You know, I did the same thing. I'm bad, they ain't gonna say nothing to me, because I'm one black person in a sea of white folks. So I put on that exterior, hard exterior. I didn't need it. So that's the best advice I can give you. And pull somebody up. When you get somewhere, pull somebody up with you, or teach somebody. somebody's struggling with something, help them out. That's what you can do.
Yeah, and Robin, don't waste time with people who don't respect you, and don't waste any time with people who don't respect your ideas of your dream. If they put it down, if they have something smart to say about it, don't waste your time trying to convince them that it has value. If it has value to you, and you are the person who's going to make it happen, they're going to go away anyway. They're not your supporters. They're your detractors. They're going to take something from you. Use that time to draw more. Use that time to read and look at things that are going to give you some benefit, okay?
Oh, and one other thing,
Yeah.
very important, they're legalizing marijuana, right?
Yeah.
The medicinal one, and you're not getting, and you're not getting, you're not getting arrested. That's what keeps a lot of us out of jobs and young people. They might legalize it, but everybody's asking you to give us a container.
Yeah, why
Leave
not?
that stuff alone, you don't need it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Go high, but don't get high. But once you get high, you may not be able to go high.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed the panel discussion with my guests, Karen Jordan and Richard Watson. This episode and the one from last month were the result of the work that were done with my interns, Dana Anderson and Janiyah McNair from Shoemaker Charter School. This final part is a brief discussion between us about what they learned from this experience. So both of you, I asked you to ask me questions. Like I said, it's only fair that you get to interview me if I get to interview you. So who's going to ask their question first?
Me.
Janiyah? Okay.
Was having us here more than you expected?
Yes. I always...
experience.
Yes. I always talk about our youth being brilliant, that with just a little support, you guys can go really far. One of the reasons I think I told you at the very beginning of this is that the reason that I do this is because my generation is passing the baton on to you, and we need you to be ready and able to handle that. So it wasn't enough for me to just say, oh, those guys with their pants hanging down and all of that. I wanted to be able to support you in what you were trying to do. So was it more? Yes, because you were very willing to work, both of you. Dana, you were always grabbing my little my book bag, my little book bag without asking. And those are things that elders find missing in your generation a lot. And without me ever asking, that became a very a pattern for you. You would just come in, you'd see me, you'd grab the suitcase and we could come upstairs. And Janiyah, you were always willing to ask. I mean, you came out of your shell a little bit, which I thought was really great. I remember when we went into the studio and trying to get you to stand up, and I put that book on your head. Next thing I know, I didn't have to ask you about that again. So I'm more than willing to work with our youth if they're willing to work with me. Those that have the attitude, those who think the world owes them, I'm not quite so willing to work with. So yeah, it was more than I expected. So what would you recommend that I do with the next interns?
Exactly what you did with us.
And probably let them open more.
For me to be more open?
You were open to us.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, it takes trust. It takes the time to get the rapport. You're working with an adult, and in some ways that's like, oh boy, here we go again. Cause?
Like with me, I was scared of it at first because I wouldn't never answer questions. Could be Dana answer questions.
And so how did I bring you out?
You let me be more confident with answer questions, and it was no judgment.
Right. And there was no judgment on you guys sometimes when I was saying I didn't like some of the stars, but that's okay. But I just think that it's important. You asked, did I share enough? One of the reasons that I do this is because of the people who shared with me when I was younger. I got to be who I am because all along the way, somebody was taking time with me to stop and to share, whether it was my parents or my teachers in school or just people that I saw on the street. That kind of support, I think, is missing sometimes from our communities. Instead of turning our noses up, I think we need to do more of that sharing. So one of the other things that we talked about was weaknesses and strengths that we wanted to work on. One of the weaknesses that I wanted to work on was my technology or lack thereof. And so I have to admit, I now have an Instagram account, thanks to my interns. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have it.
You posted something.
I did post something. I've actually posted something twice. You have to go back and look. I posted something else. And what about you? What were some of the things that you wanted to work on that we were able to help you with?
I wanted to work on communicating better with adults,
Okay.
and I pretty succeeded.
Give me one example.
Like when we were filming the show, I would have had a hard time usually like asking the questions to the guests.
Mm-hmm.
But like the practice, when we went over practice, it made it easier for me.
Okay. And Janaya?
Like, I would just like me, being shy. But then I just like let that guard down and just like start opening up.
Okay. So I think that this is a value both to you and to me, that we can have, and I know I keep hammering it, but I really want to see more dialogues going on between our elder and our youth, because you have things to show and to teach me too. I mean, not just technology. There was information that you shared that gave me an insight into how you view things. I mean, when you first came in, you were snapping. Like, what the heck are they doing? You know, but that's one of the ways that you guys communicate. So it was important for me to understand that you weren't just, because for some of us, that would have been a sign of disrespect. It was like, get out of here kind of thing. But you were sharing with me your new things that I didn't know. We did a lot of research on our guests prior to them coming, and I wanted you to understand that's part of how you do an interview show. You've got to do your research. What was one thing from both of you that you learned from our guests, whether it was in their discussion with you or their discussion with me? What was one thing that you learned about our guests that made an impact on you?
Mine was not more so what I learned, but like more so what inspired me.
Okay.
It was like that Richard, he went like during the protest, he went out and did his art. Even like, and he took the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Like that showed me how much art meant to him.
Okay. Going back to that, what did you think about their response to the question about what they learned from doing the protest, taking the protest to the street? Because that was one of the questions that we asked them. What do you think was important about that, or what did you learn from that part of the discussion?
I mean, that they got the message that they were trying to prove, like, it got out more
Okay.
than it would have been in court.
Okay. Because remember, we talked about that, whether it was better to take it to the streets or better to do it on the court. Because bottom line, it winds up coming to the court.
Because if they did it in the streets before they're not doing the streets, it would went to court anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even now, there's still cases. I think the young man that was killed in Chicago, his parents sued. I mean, the incident happened, there were a lot of riots and things that were going on. The young man that had the gun that the police pulled up and shot him, they've won a major lawsuit, but even still, it's issues that have to be addressed, and that's what I'm talking about. We need to learn from each other. I think, one of the memories that I have of you two is when we went to the studio. We would go back, because I wanted you to get familiar with it, and at first you were kind of just looking around, and after a while you got comfortable with it. And the day of the shooting, what really impressed me with you two is you asked if you could stay in the studio while the crew was setting up, and I could just see you, your eyes were big, you were going back and forth, you were just watching everything. So what did you learn from sitting in the studio that day?
You have to be patient.
Why?
Because like, everything has to be right, lighting has to be right, mics have to be right, like, it just all has to be right.
Okay. And Janaya?
It's by putting the show together, it don't just work for like you gotta plan it like here before it. You can't just plan it that day of.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta make sure you got your crew together. Everything is put together.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work to do a show. It looks easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're a professional, you can make it look easy, but actually getting there, and that was the experience I really wanted to give you, the chance to get in and really see what it took to make a show. So I think we've been able to do that.